if you are struggling with the decision of whether or not you should homeschool your children, we can say that we understand the weight of that decision and how enormous it feels, right?
That's right. And I remember, is it the right choice? Is it the right decision to even do this? Can we even manage to homeschool our kids? And what if, after going through all of that change, we discover that our kids may be falling behind? It's a hard thing to consider.
It is hard. But today, we do want to help take some of the pressure away. So,
welcome to Off the Lesson Plan.
So I think the biggest challenge for us is the fact that it feels so permanent. Remember when we started?
I remember that. In fact, I remember even saying to you, if we're going to do this, it's going to be a one-way street. We're just going to, we're going into homeschooling and that's it. We're done. And it turns out it didn't have to be that way, did it?
It did not have to be that way. And I think that, I don't know. I mean, why do you think that there's so much permanency? Is that permanency they say?
Yeah, I think, or such a heavy decision. I think for a lot of reasons. I mean, ultimately, we all want what's best for our children.
Yeah.
We want to see them progressing and eventually starting their lives.
You know what I think on this, like very quickly that came to my mind? I think because we want the best for our kids, when you have the thoughts, you know what? My kids are not receiving the best on this environment that they are in, and I want the best for my kids. And now I'm saying that the best for my kids is for me to take ownership of their education. Honestly,
yeah,
it comes with a lot of pressure.
That's right. Peer pressure.
My goodness.
Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm.
Shame.
Fear of failure.
Yeah.
Fear of messing things up.
Yeah.
Fear of having to possibly fix what was done because you made this decision.
Yeah.
Right?
And then can it be fixed?
Can it be fixed?
But the reality of it, that it is a big decision. It is a very heavy decision. And our hope is that by the end of this conversation, you feel at least more at peace with making the right decision for your family, regardless if it is actually homeschooling your kids or keeping them on traditional education for longer or forever. Now, one funny thing to me is that when our kids were 5 or 6 years old when we began discussing the possibility of homeschooling them, and you were like, "What about college?"
Right, that's right. It's like that's putting the cart in front of the horse right there. By the way.
Oh my goodness! No. We only have about 10 years to go more, 13 years to go. What about college? Because it feels so permanent.
That's right, and I think what you said before was right. You just want the best for your kids, but there's also the peer pressure, there's the shame, there's the fear of failure, of failing them. What if it messes up our family situation? So this is and
there's a lot of different factors I need to count on. So for example, many families, it's like a family like ours, where, we were both working, I was running my business, continue to run my business, Stephen is a professor. We had so many other things happening, and then you're like, well, actually, a big question, can I stay with my kids the whole day?
Right.
Every day? And the reality of it is that there's so much that we don't know about homeschooling. Once you get into it, then you realize, well, guess what? You're not going to be with your kids the whole day because there's so much that happens, depending on how you decide to move on with your homeschooling journey. But before we go there, I think talking about the peer pressure, the peer pressure, it's so crazy and funny how peer pressure happens throughout our entire lives.
That's right.
Because the peer pressure of what others will say.
Well, and in fact,
a huge thing.
Well, that's right. And when we thought about what to even name the podcast, Off the Lesson Plan, it's so much safer. It's so much easier to follow the lesson plan that has been prescribed, probably the one that you've been through. We both went to public school. Yeah. And you look at this and you think, well, why would we do something differently? It worked for us.
And then you have a lot of people that have opinions because, the way I see and how it was with us, you have the people that you meet, they're homeschooling their kids and they're thriving and they're doing great. And you look at that and you identify in your mind, my kids will thrive on that ecosystem. But then you're surrounded by other people
That's
that
right.
don't understand homeschooling or are against homeschooling, and they're telling, "Wow, you shouldn't do it. You're not able to do it." Or what if this or if that, and now you literally are in the middle of a path that you see that may be the best for your family, and at the same time, all of these people here. But the problem is, or the challenge, that all of these people here that is behind you in your personal life, they're it's almost, not almost, their opinion matter, because they are sometimes your parents or your
That's right.
siblings or your closest friends. And now if you start homeschooling and then you realize that didn't work for your family, or that you didn't like and nobody adapted, then it's just that shame of going back and being like, well, it didn't work. And I think that that is the first niche, that the first thing that needs to be overcome.
I agree. And I think these are all legitimate. Anytime you go outside of your comfort zone, you go into new territory for you. And and you hear people talking about how it's great, you can do this. Well, can I really do this? I think it's healthy to have doubts and have concerns, but it's not healthy once you identify the things that are blocking your decision from saying, you know what, this is just too hard. I'm just going to stick to the safe path. I kind of know things are not really working well for my children the way they're being educated now, but it's just going to be too hard, too much of a stretch, too much risk to make the change. So you hear people talking about how easy it is, others talking about how hard it is. And the great news about all of this, the decision's not permanent.
The decision is
Right?
not permanent. So what does it mean that the decision is not permanent? Well, in our case, our children have gone to traditional school. They went to charter school. Then we decided to, homeschool them. And then a few years later, that we were living during a time in our family that we all needed a breathing room.
Right.
And at that year, the kids went back to traditional education, had an amazing experience. And then we decided to return to our homeschooling journey. Now, we did talk a little bit about this on the first episode. If you guys want to understand why we said yes 3 times to homeschooling, you guys can go back and watch. We're not going to go, through that, but I think it's, a good watch. But the fact and the most important thing is it was not permanent for us and continues not to be permanent for us.
And we discovered our children weren't behind.
Yeah.
That we did make a lot of modifications on our mode of homeschooling, which helped. We learned a lot about homeschooling. Sometimes you don't understand something until you just got to go and do it. And what we discovered is there's a lot of support. There are a lot of folks out there that have similar situations. I want to just touch again about the fear and the shame of making this decision. If you feel this way, you're not alone. We were there. And still, this summer was the first summer where we didn't question, well, are we doing the right thing? We finally felt comfortable. And it took, 8 years of this journey?
And honestly, and it has to do with the alignment, because here's the thing. We were very lucky to have mentors in our homeschooling journey that told us right in the beginning when we were struggling, because the first year is not an easy year, and we're going to talk about that, and how you overcome the first year. But the first year is a year of trials and errors, right? So we are on that place, and we were told, listen, this doesn't need to be permanent. If it doesn't work, they can go back to school, to traditional education. So what happens is, in our case, we did year by year. So we would make a decision in August, okay, are the kids going to continue to homeschool, or are they going to go to traditional education? Okay, we're going to continue to homeschool them. Okay, you know what? It's going to be all right. Second grade, we're going to homeschool second grade. The end of that school year, then we would go to a whole summer reflection. Do we want to continue this journey, or do we want to go back to traditional education? And then we decided again, up to the point that we said, no, this year they do need to go to traditional education because we need a breather room. And that's okay, right? So that is the first thing that we would like to tell you who are questioning and who are struggling. It is not a final decision. You can homeschool your kid for a season. You can homeschool them for a semester even.
Right.
You can homeschool them for a year. And if you identify for whatever reason that that's not for you, that's not for your child, you can simply put them back into traditional education. There is no harm.
That's right. And it was very easy. We were worried, okay, now they're going back to school. How's it going to work? And they adapted immediately. It was incredible.
Yeah.
So,
I think one of the things that happens is, for example, that may happen, right? That the curriculum that you chose for your child on home education is not 100% in alignment with the curriculum that the traditional education would teach the child during that year, that specific year. But there is no behind. That is the thing. I think another thing that is very important for you to remove from your mindset is the word behind.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're teaching anything, what you are teaching your child is not so much about the subject, but you're teaching them how to learn.
That's right. And the learning needs to be foundational. We're not teaching for the test. We're not teaching for some achievement, especially at elementary level. Mm-hmm. Are they learning the basics, and are they learning them well? And if you're doing that, and it's you know what grade level they should be, what the level of the subject material should be, and if you're homeschooling at that level, they're not going to be off by much. And if you discover there's some areas where they need some strengthening, you can tutors,
and even
online resources. And
listen, it is reversible. Let's put it this way. It is reversible. So this is what we like to tell you about this. You can always put them back to traditional education. But one thing that you cannot do is have the regret of not trying something different.
That's exactly right. So it is an important decision.
Yeah.
It has a lot of factors associated with it that we talked about before, but it's not irreversible. And we discovered it's a doable thing, because we always had that safety valve of, well, we can always go back. If we feel that it's not working out for the family, for them, then we can just go back. And it was very easy to do. So please don't feel that this is an irreversible decision that is going to block you from trying to do the homeschooling journey. So I've been interacting with a lot of folks who are considering homeschooling on social media, on Facebook. And one of the consistent questions is choice of curriculum. Which curriculum do we choose? What's the best choice for my kids? How do I start selecting the curriculum? Mm-hmm. And I remember you going through a lot of, there was the homeschool conference and a lot of things that were done by you to figure all that out, because I was not prepared for any decision making at that point. So perhaps you can, if you recall how you went through that selection process, that would be great.
I think that this is such a big question, because you are making the decision to remove your child from traditional education where everything is decided, for you. And then now you're like deciding. I made so many mistakes on the first year. One of the mistakes that I did was in my case, was to purchase entire curriculums. Remember Boxing Day?
I will never forget. Literally, a hand truck full of boxes arrived. The mailman came, and I'm looking at this stack about 4 feet tall, and I'm thinking, oh my God, we had
boxes all over our living room.
Right.
It was a whole first grade curriculum, a whole second grade curriculum. And I remember just looking at those boxes and being so overwhelmed. Then I began opening the boxes, and there were so many books. There were students' books, parents' book, and there was
supplemental. There were books, there were workbooks, there were parent guidebooks.
It gives me anxiety just to think about it.
I remember that, and it seems so overwhelming.
And then I questioned the whole thing. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot do this. It was very overwhelming. And why am I saying that? In any moment, I'm saying that those curriculums are not great. To the contrary, there's some amazing ones that we have used. But what I would encourage parents now, almost a decade, in hindsight, I would focus on the fundamentals, as you were saying. This way, if it doesn't work for you, you strengthen the fundamentals for your child. I think that's very, whatever is the fundamentals for them, strengthen that, because that will give them a good foundation later on if they go back to the traditional school. But what I would say is that what I did not do is that the first step is to really, to a certain extent, doing a reset. Is almost
A cleansing.
a
Or
cleansing,
yeah,
yes. So it's almost like you need to do a cleansing, an educational cleansing of your family, so that you can really understand how does each one of your children or your child learns best.
Well, and I would also say, I remember an aspect of this that I remember now. So one of the folks you were talking to had been a school teacher, and her approach was literally to bring the school into the home. And that was part of why we wound up with this full curriculum.
Oh, yes.
And then in the end,
Oh my God,
and I
that's such a good-
remember in the
yes.
end saying, well,
I
they,
love your memory, by the way.
yeah, no, well, my
You
memory
have
is
such a good memory.
very spotty, by the way.
No.
And I already forgot what I just said. But having said that, no, but then we realized, well, you mostly realized. But
Yes. So I wanted to, I think that was the thing. Like, that was the first mistake that I made was, okay, we need to be like a school. It needs to be like a little school inside the house.
No.
You don't need to do that. But that is, I feel that so much about the whole, what is the word? Of the whole cleansing. It is our own perception and our own understanding of what education needs to look like. Because come on, all of us came from
Well, that was
a
our
traditional educational system.
that was our model, right?
That was the only mode of education that you think of. I mean, there are people that know other homeschoolers, but we knew nothing about homeschooling. We were like green to homeschooling. So then what happens is that, yes, I wanted to make our home a school, and everybody needs to have a book and a notebook, and we're going to sit, and everybody's going to learn.
Crisscross applesauce.
Yes. And then very fast we realized that did not work. Why that did not work? Because the main reason why we, to a certain extent, we choose homeschooling is because the traditional system is not working.
Exactly.
So we cannot bring the traditional system in. But to a certain extent is the easiest way to do it in the beginning because you have structure. It takes a long time for you to flow in the freedom.
That's right. Absolutely. But just one final point about what
Yeah.
you just said. It's not a race.
Yes.
There are not these artificial checkpoints. The
Yes.
schools do that because they're so test driven. And my
Yeah.
sister spoke about that in episode 2 and how that has really degraded the educational experience for a lot of students and also teachers. There's no test that's coming up that we need to get through this material.
That's exactly
ready for the
it.
test.
Yes.
So the only thing we need to do is make sure that the foundation has been built for that subject. And once the foundation is secure, then you move on. So there's no need to worry about catching up, right?
Yes.
Or falling behind.
There's no catching up. But in all honesty, it took me years to realize there was nothing to catch up to.
Right.
It took me years. So if you're a new homeschool parent, homeschooling is about going on your child's flow. It's going on your child's move. It is following your child's movement. It's allowing your child to learn as they learn.
Right.
So I think that is a very beautiful thing. Today, we practice what we call hybrid education system. Our children go to a co-op twice a week. And then they also do classes on OutSchool, which is an amazing platform for parents who are starting, by the way.
Online
It's
platform,
online, it's outschool.com. They have a huge variety of quality educators that can teach an entire school year curriculum for your child because so highly recommend outschool.com. A little plug-in for outschool.com that you guys should sponsor a podcast because we do so many lessons there. Check our account for you to see.
Yes, please. That's right. No, but
that is one of the, go ahead.
Well, and I would say even if you decide not to homeschool, these are great resources for your
yes.
child when they're in public school.
Oh my God, 100%,
supplementing.
yes.
I would say it's like a tutoring. It's not really tutoring, but it's kind of like tutoring. If you notice that there's a deficiency somewhere, they're
Yes.
a little bit slow in the uptake.
Yes.
They can go and do this online course.
And they have the
like
coolest classes
yeah,
too.
Yeah.
Coolest class. I remember when our kids took magic classes when they were little. They were so excited. I mean, the teachers are amazing. It is an amazing, yes, you can use as a supplement as well. A lot of people don't know about this platform. So OutSchool is something that we use for a few of our classes this year now for high school. And then we also bring in curriculum that are that we're gonna do at home, that we do at home for
Right,
children.
right.
Yes.
And so oftentimes when folks talk about, when they hear about homeschooling, and that's where the question, are the kids really learning? Are they really studying the subjects? And the answer is yes,
Yeah.
right? Especially when you have all the support of various curriculum and stuff. So depending on the attitude, aptitude
Yes.
of your child, and what's great about the home education environment is that there truly is something there for everyone who if you feel that traditional school is no longer right for your child, there are a lot more options than just sitting around the table with a curriculum and grinding through stuff like it's school. And as a professor, I can say that the students who perform really well in my classes and laboratories, and I've graduated a lot of graduate students, PhD and master students. The ones who are enthusiastic, who had a joy and found learning to be fun, they thrive. Those that where they feel like learning is work, it's a job, hey, you'll work soon enough, okay? At this stage of their life, they need to be having fun. They need to want to learn. They need to see the benefits of learning. They need to have joy and not a heavy heart. And I think that's where being able to mix and match how you do this.
Yeah.
And every child is different. And even in our case, we have two children that are really different in their temperaments and what their likes and dislikes. And
I
we're
think the
able to
most-
tailor
yeah,
to either
that's exactly
kid, right?
it. And that happens. For example, we started our school year, this week.
2 days
and,
ago.
And I did this beautiful schedule. I got those huge stick notes, and I color coordinated the schedule and spent like a few hours. And I was like, this is a beautiful schedule, because here's the thing. You need to focus on what works for your kids. Your choice of curriculum is going to be what works for your kids, how they learn best, and then you're going to find a curriculum that works best for that type of learner. Our kids, they work best with a schedule. They need to have the structure of a schedule, which is, I'm with lots of words.
That's not this woman's vibe, okay? She's not.
I don't like schedules.
at
I don't
all.
like schedules. I love going with the flow to me, but no, my kids do not. Our kids don't like going with the flow. They actually want to know when things are happening. Mostly because they want to know when they're done.
Right.
Because that's the most
When they can
important
go
thing.
play.
Like homeschooling doesn't necessarily make children, oh my God, I love studying, right? You will have, for most families, for families that are not the outliers, for all of the very normal, common families which were a part of it, nobody wakes up in the morning like, oh my goodness, let's study. Sometimes, I wonder, like sometimes they wake up like, so, do we need to do schoolwork today? I'm like, dude, girl, we do schoolwork.
What day is it? It's
every,
Tuesday.
Like, seriously.
What's the answer?
Right?
Yes. Oh.
So we all go through that, and that's okay. It's part of the hustle here.
But personal days, it's easy to do personal days.
Oh,
and we
yes.
do. And Vani learned this amazing thing at the beginning of the journey, which was brain breaks. And we do brain breaks, and they would go out.
Lots of brain breaks.
They go outside, they run, let's wash the car, right? Or let's
But
go do
even
this.
personal
And-
days,
Yeah.
you can bring learning with it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Just by taking a walk in your neighborhood, you can be teaching. And I
right.
think one of the most beautiful parts of the journey that we had as homeschoolers, we still have, but now our kids are teenagers, a little bit different. Just because teenagers are teenagers, regardless if they homeschool or not.
That's right.
Is how you're able to bringing what they're learning to life. So for example, I have an example of grammar and nature with erosion and adverbs, right? That was one of the things that we did one time. You go out for a walk in the neighborhood or something. Some days your kids are going to be tired. They don't want to study. So you can just let's just go for a walk today. And you can bring to life.
Right. Well,
that
I
lesson.
remember we saw snails. We talked about invertebrates and
Yeah.
reptiles, and you see lizards, and you can talk about the different types of animals, and I remember the erosion story because we were walking together. We found a place where we were on this dirt path, and part of it had washed out, and we had been talking about the water cycle,
Yeah.
and erosion, and how this can be detrimental to the environment, and
And
so
then they're
yeah,
seeing it, and
right,
that is actually you are strengthening the lesson. So at a traditional school, they will learn about erosion, and they will learn about the cycle, and they'll learn all in a notebook, maybe with a PowerPoint. Maybe they will even watch
a film,
a film, a movie, right? But then through homeschooling, you're able to bring that. Okay, we learned about this today. So let's take a walk and let's see if we find erosion.
It makes it
You
real.
may not even find it, but
That's right.
that is now you're bringing your kid outside of this the house. You're putting the creativity. They're searching. Now you are also giving them vitamin D. You're giving them exercise. They're breathing fresh air.
I'd like to wrap this up if it's
Yes,
okay.
yes,
So
please.
so the beautiful part of what you're saying is homeschooling can be beneficial to the entire family.
Oh,
It's not just the
yes.
kids. And so it brings you together. Everybody's
Yeah.
learning, everybody's improving.
I do need to put a point on your wrap up though about this. When they were little, it brought us together as a family because they're little and they're delicious and they're cute and they're like. Now, as teenagers, I find that homeschooling brings us together as a family from a different perspective.
That's right.
Because now you know what's going on in their lives, right? You know what they're learning. You know who they're connecting with. You know the social activities that they did over there. You know so much of that it allows you to have conversations at the dinner table.
Right.
Like, for example, teenagers, they just know so much and they have such an incredible anointing in them. This generation of teenagers, you and your sister spoke about this, for a while in the end of the last podcast where you were guys talking about, that you have so much hope for, for the future. And I thought it was so beautiful because it came from her perspective as a public school teacher for 30 years saying, with all of the challenge that we're experiencing with the system, I have tremendous joy, tremendous hope for the future.
Right.
This is a different generation. This is a generation that gives me hope.
Yeah, that's new. Yeah, that's right. But as we wrap up this
Yes.
part of our conversation, as you can see, there are many different ways, many different flavors of home education. There's probably here's the thing I would say. If you feel that something's not quite right about the lesson plan that we've all been prescribed to, and you feel that you need to make a change, not an easy decision. There's a lot that goes into that. It's a heavy decision, but it's not irrevocable. It's doable, and you just need to. And there's a lot of folks. Again, we don't even know how we found the co-op we're using, which has been such a treasure for us. But it was through some other homeschooling family that we learned about this.
Yeah.
But ask us questions. I guess we're supposed to suggest
Enjoy
them.
why our podcast is small and little, guys, where we can make this offer.
That's right. So, you subscribe and you like and you comment, and
Yes.
we're doing a lot of.
It's so true. Please subscribe and
please,
like
please.
And leave a comment.
Right.
If you leave a comment with more than 3 words, I hear that's good. So
Yeah, but we will. I'm not a big social media person, but I'm spending much more time dialoguing. It actually warms my heart to be able to reach out to those who have gone through what we've gone through.
yeah.
So thank you for joining us. Our hope with this podcast is that you would understand that the decision to homeschool your children is not a one-way street. You can always go back, and that there are going to be naysayers out there and others who are going to tell you that it's all going to be, balloons and yeah, I'm thinking jujubes. It's an old, it's going to be like, cotton candy and everything's going to be sunshine and everyone's going to get along great.
Yeah.
The reality is going to be somewhere in the middle, but that this is an important decision that you will be able to make with
And
confidence.
it's important to say as well,
Yeah.
just to jump in very quickly, it's important to say as well that only you know
Right.
what is right for your kid because you are the one that is putting your kid to bed every night, that is
Right.
waking up with your kid every night, that is seeing the tears, or
Right.
that is seeing whatever it is that you're seeing. Yeah.
The stress from the testing. So,
Yeah.
I know it's a cliche, but trust your gut. If you feel
Yeah.
that you need to make a change, do it. Okay? And know that you're not alone. And know that we have been through all of the what ifs and worry and anxiety.
goodness, yeah.
And the great news about our story is that we've gone back and forth. We've made the
Yeah.
decision to homeschool 3 times. Our kids are doing well as far as we know. And we're very comfortable with what we've been doing. And we wish you all the best
Yeah.
for you and your families and your children, okay?
Yes.
That's right. And we hope to see you at our next episode next week. Bye-bye.
Alrighty. Bye-bye, guys.